What's up, YouTube? Capital G here, talking to Dark Illusion, and we've got ourselves a new pot card, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting enough, this is actually one that lets you draw two cards immediately, which is funny because I thought that that effect was more or less like taboo. I didn't think that they were going to build that into any more cards, because when I think of a pot spell that lets you draw two immediately, I kind of think of the cards that are on the artwork of this new card, Pot of Cupidity. I think of Pot of Greed and Pot of Avarice, and I mean, both of those cards are banned in the TCG, and hell, even in the OCG, Pot of Greed is banned, and I don't think Pot of Greed's ever coming back. I don't even think they can, maybe they might errata it so that, like, you don't get a battle phase or a normal draw or something like that. I don't know. But I mean, it just seems extremely powerful. Now, this card does have some hefty restrictions, and you can only activate one per turn, which with the other pots, you could do that, or you didn't really have to do that. Like, you can activate 3 Pot of Greeds in one turn, which is one of the biggest problems with Pot of Greed, let alone the fact that it is the definition of just skillless advantage. But let's talk about this new card, guys. This is Pot of Cupidity. It's a normal spell card. It says you can only activate Pot of Cupidity once per turn. The effect is banish the top 10 cards of your deck face down, draw 2 cards. Now that is a huge and hefty restriction. It basically is asking you, how bad do you want those 2 cards? Because, people are going to say, well, Cap, can't you use things like Iron Wall to make sure that the cards don't get banished? No, because it's actually a cost. So chaining Iron Wall or having Iron Wall face up, it'll never work. If you chain Iron Wall, then it doesn't matter because the cost will be paid immediately. So the cards will still get banished face down. And if you have Iron Wall face up, then you won't be able to pay the cost and you won't be able to activate the card. So like, you never can get around that cost. But there are actually some ways of being able to exploit this card. The quickest way I thought of was Necroface. Necroface, when it's normal summon, it spins all the banished cards from either player's banished zone, and it puts them back into your deck. So with Necroface, you'd instantly be able to get back all those resources, and you get 100 attack for each one, which means at the minimum, Necroface will be at least 2200. So that is like a really great play there, because with Necroface, not only do you get a real big, big beefy monster, but I mean, you go +1, you still have your battle phase, you still can, draw cards later in the turn, you still can, special summon monsters. That is the thing about this card. Even though it has a hefty activation cost and you can only use 1 per turn, you still can draw as many cards as you want during that turn. You still get your battle phase. You can still special summon. There's really not that many restrictions on this card, because the main thing is you still can special summon and you still get your battle phase. Like, that's kind of important to me. Another couple of interesting combos I thought of are with Golden Homunculus and Grin Maju Daiza. I mean, say that name 5 times fast, right? So with these 2 cards, and you can, I don't know, maybe build a deck with, like, if you just want to fuck around, you could build a deck with these cards in it and throw in like Reasoning, because this is level 6, this is level 3. This guy right here, he gains 300 attack for each of your banished cards. So at the minimum, since you're going to banish 10, I mean, he basically gained 3,000 attack, and he'd be 4,500. That's pretty damn respectable. This card's even easier to summon because it's level 3, and this attack and defense becomes equal to the number of cards that you have removed from play times 400. So I mean, again, you're going to banish 10 cards immediately, which means that this card is going to go up to at least a minimum of 4,000 attack, which is why it's important that they put in you can only use once per turn, because essentially, if you could use 2 Pot of Cupidities per turn, like if you could use 2 or more and then you just summon this, like, it would basically be an OTK. Like, you'd be able to activate 2 of them in one turn, and then you'd have an 8,000, or if you did 3 in one turn, you'd basically have like a 12,000 attack monster, and you'd just be able to win. So it's kind of important that they built that into it. There's also Chaos End. I think at least these 2 came out in IOC, because like Invasion of Chaos, they were, everything in the set, a lot of it had to do with like the banish zone and being able to banish shit and summon it back and all that good stuff. So this one is essentially just a dark hole, but it only you can only activate it when you have 7 or more banished cards. So I don't think that there's a reason to run this, because Dark Hole's at 2. To be honest, by the time that the Dark Illusion comes out, Dark Hole might even be at 3, because it's a good card, but like, I don't know. I mean, Dark Hole might end up being at 3. We also have Regeki, which is infinitely better. So I really don't think that you'll be playing this, but these 3 have natural synergy with the card, especially Necroface, because it gives you those resources right back to your deck. And who knows, guys, Sangan, it got unbanned in the OCG, so Sangan would make Necroface, and it would make this guy searchable because it has the question mark attack and defense. I believe, I could be wrong about this, I believe that monsters with question mark stat lines, I believe they count as 0 when they're in your deck. So I think this card is searchable by Sangan. But again, Sangan has to get that errata in the TCG, and, Konami's got to unban it first. Now, people might be asking, since it's face down, can you use things like, remove or return from the different dimension or escape from the different dimension to summon monsters back. No, the game state doesn't recognize cards that are face down that are banished. It doesn't recognize them as monsters, spells, or traps. It just recognizes them as, you know, actual cards. It just, that's all it does. It doesn't differentiate between. So, you know, you'd never be able to use these cards to summon them back. Konami might want to errata these in the future, and I'm thinking they didn't want you being able to summon, you know, 5 monsters back in one turn and still being able to get your battle phase and being able to kill your opponent. Like, that might be a little too OP. Plus, if the monsters weren't face down, like, I mean, the plays with Cosmos would just be absurd. Like, could you imagine just being able to banish 10 Cosmo monsters or 10 Cosmo cards, like, face down, or excuse me, face up, and, you know, you'd be able to straw man some of the cards back. You'd be able to, you know, use Cosmo Town to get the other cards back. So it wouldn't be that bad in a deck like Cosmos. There is Cyframe Omega. This card can actually put things back into the graveyard. It doesn't care if the cards are face down. The only thing with Cyframe Omega that's kind of quirky is you never really know what the hell you're picking because the cards go face down, so you don't know what is what. Like, you'd imagine that in a deck like Cyframes or Infernoids, I know people have said, hey, you can play this in Infernoids, make Cyframe Omega and put your cards back, but you don't actually know what is a monster because it's face down and you never actually see it. So, I mean, maybe you'll get lucky and you'll be able to pitch your Stydamus or your Patru back in your graveyard, but you don't technically know. So, I don't know. I think this card definitely has some potential. And if in the future, Konami makes more ways of putting banished cards back into your graveyard or back into your deck, then this card will definitely be, it'll definitely be something to keep an eye on because you still get your battle phase, you still get the special summon. I don't know, dude. I think that it and Necroface is like a perfect 2-card combo. I mean, you get a good beater, all your cards go back into your deck, and, you know, you basically don't have any other restrictions. So let me know what you guys think of Pot of Cupidity. Thank you for watching as always.